Hi guys, welcome back to the Blading Physio YouTube channel. A while ago I did a video about how I learned Cess Slides, and in that video I talked about how I took 3 weeks before even attempting one just to get that mobility that was needed to get the slides done. I don't have a lot of mobility in my hips and ankles, so I took this trick very seriously. I just didn't want to injure myself because I wouldn't be able to film for you guys or I wouldn't be able to skate. So I took my time to open up my hips, get that mobility in my ankles that was needed, and it turned out pretty good. So I want to share with you the exercises I did before hitting those Cess Slides. If you're somebody that wants to do Cess Slides but feeling like you're not ready for it or not have the mobility for it, this is the perfect video for you. I'll explain everything that I did, and like I showed you, it worked well, so let's get into it. So because I played soccer on a low level when I was younger, I really have rigid ankles. So that was my first concern, that my ankles would not bend enough to do the slides. I made a habit of it to stretch my ankles during the day. Just with some shoes on, you can easily stretch during the day while you're standing or while you're sitting, and this helped me a lot to gain that mobility. I wouldn't recommend this to patients that have loose ankles, totally not. This was solely for the purpose of doing that Cess Slide and gaining that mobility. I would never do these stretches if I would still play soccer on a low level and the field is bumpy and not flat. I totally wouldn't recommend this for people with loose ankles. This is solely for me, that what I needed to do this trick. So this was only in function of the trick that I stretched my ankles and that I opened up my hips, but I'll talk about that later on. Once my ankles were loose enough, I tried to do it more specific. So I put my skates on and I just stretched my ankles in a crossed leg position. So first I did a few days of the general stretches of my ankle, and then I was able to take it more specific. But I kept on doing the general stretches during the day because that was still necessary to improve that mobility. When I felt that the ankles were ready for it, I also focused myself on my hips because that's also a not so mobile part of my body. In my head, the deep squat was the best way to stretch my hips, the most specific though, and as the Unity Cess Slide is kind of a deep squat but with crossed legs, I think, or in my head, that was the best one to do. So I started out with regular deep squats, just rocking around, and whenever I felt like my hips were open enough or mobile enough, I tried to do the deep squat but with crossed legs, still just with my shoes on. So just first deep squats, then going over to crossed leg deep squats, and whenever I was ready for that, I tried to do it with my skates on, so crossed leg, and then went into the deep squat and keep it there or try to hold it just to feel that stretch and to gain that mobility that was needed. And the final part was to jump into that position. I also tried to build this up slowly because the impact of jumping and going to a deep squat could have a lot of stretch on the knees. So I first tried to just jump in that crossed leg position and then always go deeper and deeper. And as you saw in my video, I still had to improve on that part to go deeper and deeper, so I would really sit down on this slide. So after 3 weeks of stretching my ankles and hips, I felt ready to do the slide. The only thing that was holding me back was waiting on some rain, because I wasn't sure if I would slide from the first time, and I really wanted to slide or to experience the slide before trying it in the dry. But with this being said, I hope you find this useful. I hope you are able to do Cess Slides from now on. Just take your time with stretches, don't force it, because the body needs to adapt to the new forces and new stretches you put it on. So if you're gonna jump right into that slide, you might hurt yourself or you might get injured. So take your time for it, like I did. I took 3 weeks before I went really sliding into that Cess Slide or that Unity Cess Slide. So yeah, my advice is take your time, stretch when needed if you feel like you need it. If you're someone with great mobility, take your time to jump slowly into that movement, but the stretches will be less needed for you. And yeah, I would say have fun, and we see each other in another video, guys. Thanks. So once again, this is solely for this specific trick and for me only in skating that I needed this mobility and stretching. Like you see, these are controlled movements, and I only go where I feel it stretch and don't go further in any pain or anything else. If you're doing these stretches, try to use your common sense in where you could go and how much of a stretch you want to take upon it. Don't force yourself and take your time with this. Also here, the crossed leg squat is a specific exercise I want to do, or I would give to people who want to learn this trick, but I wouldn't give it to somebody who comes to strengthen their legs or a patient who has knee problems. I would totally not give this to that kind of people. But with the purpose of a unity Cess slide, yes, I would give this exercise to that specific person who wants to do that specific thing.